Okay, let's start the chapter. Okay, in this chapter, we'll talk about global sourcing and procurement. Explain what the strategic sourcing is one of the objective of this chapter. Explain why company outsource process, analyze the total cost of ownership or TCO, evaluate the source performance. What's a strategic sourcing? Strategic sourcing is the development and management of suppliers' relationship to acquire a good and service in a way that aids in achieving the immediate needs of the business. In the past, sourcing was just another name for purchasing. As a result of a globalization, sourcing implies a more complex process suitable for products that are strategically important. And the early chapters we spoke about how to mitigate the risk by looking at the suppliers and sourcing. Specificity refers to a common item is, and in a relative sense, how many substitutes might be available. Commonly available product can be purchased using a relative simple process, like buying bread. As a company or a restaurant wants to buy bread, there's so many sources to buy the bread. Buying water, bottle of water, there's so many sources. Another hand is a request for a proposal or RFP is used for purchasing items that are more complex or expensive and where there might be a number of potential vendors. One step ahead of RFP is something called RFI if it's more complex a product, which is RFI request for information. Once you don't have enough information, you publish an RFI, then you drive an RFP from it. Vendor manage inventory when a customer actually allows the suppliers to manage the inventory policy for an item or a group of items. So the suppliers comes in, especially is done in a lots of supermarket where they come and check the amount, the items that they have and will supply more or less. Now, when we do a sourcing and purchasing design matrix, we have to look at the transaction costs, specificities, and the contract duration. And according to that, we will do sourcing or purchasing. Now, when do we need to do a request for a proposal is when the duration, contract duration is short, less than a year or 2 years maximum. The transaction cost is high, but there is not many of them available. So you do a request for a proposal or RFP. You do a strategic alliance when the contract duration is very long and the cost is very high. So you have to do a strategic alliance. But you might have a very specific that not everybody also providing it. So if you look at all of them, the situation, what's the best practice in the market, this is according to the how specific is the product, what's the transaction cost, whether it's high or low, and the contract duration. And accordingly, you select where you fit in this matrix. Other options is to see how is this done with the competitive companies that you're working in the same market. There is something called the bullwhip effect. The bullwhip effect is a phenomenon of variability's magnification as we move from the customer to the producers in the supply chain. We give you an outside example. They find out if the 10 kilometers down the road or 5 kilometers or something like that, if somebody steps on the brake, there is the person back in the cars in 5 kilometers will have to wait 5 minutes or 3 minutes to move his car because each one will step on the brake and then it becomes a stop, 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 and that's if it gives you an example. Now, if the customer um, change his order, wants to order and make a changes, to go back to the supply chain, this will take so much time as transfer of informations and transfer of the concept and the knowledge. A slight change in a customer's sales ripples backward magnified the oscillation, I'm sorry, upstream like the result of a flick of a bullwhip handle. This is another thing is forward buying, which is the practice of stocking up on the product due to the temporary price reduction, makes this variability even worse because you're stocking up on product and somebody wants to adjust things, so it makes it worse. Continuous replenishment is that inventory is replaced frequently. So we spoke about it in earlier chapters. You can do it by time or you can do it by amount as a part of ongoing product process to reduce the variability. Now, the outsourcing. What's an outsourcing? Outsourcing is a moving some of a firm internal activities and decision responsibilities to the outside providers. Allow a company to create a competitive advantage while reducing cost. And an entire function may be outsourced or some element of activity may be outsourced with the rest kept in house. You heard of outsourcing these days, lots of softwares, hardwares are getting outsourced to through the cloud computing. Now, the reason for to outsource, one is could be a financial, where you improve the return on the asset by reducing inventory and selling unnecessary assets. The second thing, you can generate cash by selling low return entities. You also can gain access to the new market, particularly in developing countries, reduce the cost through the cost of structure, and turn fixed costs into a variable cost because all your fixed costs can be minimized by outsourcing these things. Generate cash by selling or low return entities and get rid of them. That's another thing. The improvement part. So the reason, one of the reason, financial, second improvement, and the third is the organizational. The improvement part, improve the quality and productivity, shorten the cycle times, and each one of these will be talking about it more in details. Obtain expertise, skills, and technology that are otherwise unavailable. Improve the risk management, um, improve the credibility and image by associating with the suppliers, providers. On the organizational side, you can improve the effectiveness by focusing on what the firm does the best, increase the flexibility to meet the changing demand for the product and services, and increase the product and service value by improving the response to the customer needs. There is also what you call a logistic outsourcing. Procter and Gamble does that. Johnson and Johnson does that, and a logistic outsourcing. Logistic, what's logistic? Logistic is the management function that support a complete cycle of material from purchasing to the distribution. Now, logistic providers have shifted from simply moving product from one point to another point. You can track the shipment. Where is it now? You can notify the customer notification. Will reduce the reduction. Will create if there is legal things like a borders, entries, or exit. Now, there is other thing that we saw with the Subaru movie is being environmental responsible has become a business imperative. Many firms are looking to their supplier chain to deliver a green result. Financial result can often be improved through working with the suppliers. A comprehensive green sourcing effort should assess how a company use items that are purchased internally, and it's also important to reduce the waste. We can see that some companies are going through reduce, recycle, and reuse, and this is one of the green sourcing. Some of us heard of total cost of ownership or TCO. This is one of the most practiced done in IT, especially. The total cost of ownership or TCO, an estimate of the cost of an item that include all costs related to the procurement and use of an item, include any related cost in the disposing of the item. It can be applied to the internal cost or more broadly to the cost throughout the supply chain. Let's look at this one. Here what we see is the acquisition cost and purchase the planning cost. You see the qualities cost, how much taxes you're paying, how much the purchase price, and the financing cost could be an interest, borrowing from bank. And then you look at the ownership by deriving this acquisition cost and post ownership uh, cost. And you see that when you own it, you start having an energy cost, maintenance and repair, financing, supply chain, networking access, or the post ownership that there is a disposable cost maybe there, environmental costs, warranties, guarantees, product liability costs, and customer dissatisfaction. And all of these will be part of calculation of total cost of ownership. It's important when you purchase an asset, long run asset, even the short term asset, you need actually the long term's much feasible and the cost of it's high, you need to calculate the total cost of ownership from purchasing the assets, from costing, from the internet, interest, from whether the associate costs, training costs, after usage costs, all these need to be calculated and put it into the cost of total cost of ownership. This is the end of the chapter. It's a short one.